Philip Roseman. J.D. Vance.
A Yale-educated lawyer and Silicon Valley venture capital.
Vance without a beard, bro. That's like, it's so bad. It's so bad, dog. It is so goddamn bad. Holy moly, it is bad.
Good member of Congress. Those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
In contrast to his often combative tone on the campaign trail.
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was.
Senator Vance appeared measured and polite.
I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get.
But in a recent poll, more than half of registered voters, 51%, said they view Vance.
I think that the Hong Kong stuff was like really weird. I think what he could have just simply said is that he misspoke or something and just like moved on. Why do we give a fuck about the Tiananmen Square thing? We don't. This is one of those instances where the media chooses to, like, the media desperately tries to find like a equilibrium, right? Where they're like, well, we're doing JD Vance stuff, so we might as well like find something to showcase how equal and even-footed we are on this issue. Okay? And that's precisely what's going on. They're like, oh, well, you said that you were there at the Tiananmen Square protests one time many, many years ago. Like, it's minuscule. It's totally minuscule in comparison to like, all of the stuff that you have for JD Vance that he regularly, it's neutrality, not objectivity. Exactly. But they sell it. All right, bye. They sell it as though it is objectivity, but it actually is neutrality. And yeah, like JD Vance, even in that debate, said numerous fucking times a litany of unhinged things. Okay. For example, he said the housing crisis is caused by immigrants, that undocumented immigrants are responsible for the housing crisis. That is a ridiculous position, okay? That is a preposterous position. You automatically are making it seem like it's like saying the housing crisis is being caused by people moving to an area, okay? Like not just undocumented immigrants or documented immigrants, just anyone moving to an area. It is ridiculous to mention that without stating that like we are not actually keeping up with the additional demand. And it's especially ridiculous when your argument is in recognition of that reality, that there is need for more supply of housing, which is why one of your policies is literally to create 3 million additional housing units, okay? And there is a litany of different issues that also artificially limit the supply of available housing anyway. I think that overall, so much insanity goes unchecked whenever immigrants are discussed. They are simply a non-entity. They're not human. Like they're not viewed or communicated about as though they are human, but instead they are some sort of barbaric horde, a monolithic force of evil, that they are operating within the boundaries of the United States as like a monolithic evil force. This is a very dangerous idea to leave unchecked. Okay, it is at the heart of fascist thought, and I am genuinely frustrated. I'm genuinely frustrated that this is not something that people are working to solve, like something that they're working to solve in terms of the communication, and it is leading America down a dangerous path. Hold on, I'm posting a photo of me and Motaz. Oh, it's right there, I think. Under the table. There's a bag under the table. I don't know whose it is, but that might be it. All right, bye. Could you please explain why it's ridiculous to say that an increase in immigration causes increasing housing prices, like doesn't increase demand, increase pricing equilibrium? The reason why it's ridiculous is because the types of housing the types of housing that like the undocumented migrants occupy in general are not the types of housing that you're staying in anyway. Like, this is not a real problem in general. They, for the most part, are overwhelmingly living in the absolute most desolate, the absolute worst conditions in the slums. Okay, they're not purchasing the houses; they're renting them, and if that is a problem, if they are impacting the supply, you don't communicate it like that. You don't ever, like, if there was a massive amount of people in a normal society, if there was a massive amount of people from, like, I don't know, California moving to Texas, for example, does that actually raise housing prices? Certainly. Okay. But the problem isn't stopping Californians from moving to Texas. That's not how you deal with that issue. The way you deal with that issue instead is by increasing the supply of housing. Okay, that's it. Anyway, bro, this guy's off control for sure. Look at his chest. No way. I agree.
Vance unfavorably, while just 32%.
Like, the immigrants are responsible for the housing supply diminishing. Unironically, is in the same vein as like immigrants are responsible for drug trafficking into the United States of America. They comprise a tiny percentage of the available housing that they occupy. Okay, and yet they are made to be the problem in this story. Just like they are not responsible for the drug trafficking into the United States at all. And yet this is improper framing. Oh, who do you think is more responsible for diminishing housing supply in urban areas? Okay, who?
So one of the most
do you think it's the immigrants, or do you think it's Airbnbs, for example? Who do you think is more responsible? Airbnb or undocumented migrants? I thought you said this debate didn't matter. Why does everyone seem to care so much about it? Is it because it's just a news story? I mean, people care about it because, like, these are two unknown entities overall. This is a unique election cycle in terms of, like, having a very truncated campaign on the one hand, the Kamala Harris campaign, with a relatively new, lesser known person that is supposed to be the VP of this campaign, going up against J.D. Vance, who was also relatively new on the scene, Green senator, one-term senator overall, very young. And on top of that, Trump is old. Who knows what happens to him, you know? He keeps having assassination attempts. So, like, J.D. Vance could very well be the next president if something happens to Donald Trump. So people are interested, I think.
Things about the debate last night was that the Trump-Vance housing plan, the plan that Vance put out repeatedly, was mass deportations. They were going to lower the cost of housing, make more housing available by mass deporting millions of people.
This is straight up Nazi, by the way. Like, I hope y'all understand. I'm not even remotely exaggerating when I say this is straight up Nazi Germany. Okay. Oh, we'll take all of the things that the ill-gotten gains of the Jews. Okay. Because we deserve it. We deserve those gains instead. Pre-watched? What do you mean pre-watched? I'm pre-watching history, I guess. You should pre-watch the top of the hour ad break. Okay. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you could do for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite broadcaster. Okay, here's the 3-minute ad break now. Did you see this? Yeah, I did. The Daily Trojan article, it's up there. You pre-watched history? Yes, I think that's called learning. Yeah. Okay, I think we should change the Tiltify link to just the Unreal link, because the direct Unreal link, because it's tilting me. How many chatters are like, it's not working. Okay, I don't know what's going on there, and I'm annoyed. All right, let's continue.
The CBS even put it up on the screen as like a legitimate housing policy. Democrats want tax credits and assistance for construction, and Trump and Vance want to deport lots of people to alleviate demand, treating it like a legitimate policy. Now, we can talk about it as a policy, right? As a policy, it doesn't make any fucking sense. First of all, it strains credulity to think that there are millions of homes owned by unauthorized immigrants. I think according to Freddie Mac, the nation is short 3.8 million homes to rent or buy. So you're telling me that some significant portion of that 3.8 million are owned by unauthorized immigrants who don't have social security numbers, who don't have tax identification numbers, who may not have bank accounts, right? I'm lucky enough, blessed enough to own a home, and in addition to having to save a lot of money over a very long time, I had to have all this paperwork, all this legal documentation. And you're telling me that people who are not in the country legally have all this documentation to be able to buy a home. It's dumb. It's stupid. Setting that aside, right, if you were to deport 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million people, you would cause, especially unauthorized immigrants, you would cause the American construction industry to collapse. There would be very little labor for construction, which would cause the price of building anything in this country, and especially homes, to skyrocket. So not only would this not make a dent on supply, but it would likely cause the price of housing to grow by huge amounts, by leaps and bounds. But kind of the policy thing is almost besides the point, because tell me if this sounds familiar to you. The plan to make America great again, to provide housing for the many citizens who need it, is to go home by home, deport millions of people, and essentially take their homes and provide it for native-born citizens. There's a name for that. There's a name for that. It's in German. It's Lebensraum. And when you think of some of the other stuff they've suggested, Trump saying we need a single night of letting the police go wild to deal with everything. We joke that he's talking about the purge, but there's another way you can look at that, the name for it. I'll use the English name here, Night of Broken Glass. You can't tell me that these people aren't calling for what they're calling for.
They are, straight up. They are. Okay? Absolutely, without a shred of doubt, that is precisely what they're doing. Okay? In terms of American domestic policy, that is exactly the issue. Is why the f is it just Jamel Bowie talking about it? Why the f is Kamala Harris not talking about it? Why the f is the Democratic Party not talking about it? Well, I'll tell you why. Okay? The reason why the Democrats are not talking about it in these terms is because they are also now in the tank for a lighter version of it. And I am very frustrated by this reality that I am watching unfold in front of my eyes. Okay? I do not like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it one bit, because even if this was to be successful politics, which it is not, because it's not successful to lean on the right wing, right wing sentiments. You're not going to actually convince voters to vote for you, because if they are anti-immigrant voters, they are voting for a party that has captured that market completely. Okay, it's called the Republican Party. All you are doing in that circumstance is basically prime your voters into also believing that there is a major problem when there isn't one. Okay? All you're doing is feeding your own base of support. All you're doing is feeding your own base of support an unimaginable amount of ammunition to maybe even turn to the other party. That's why it is very frustrating when I see liberals in this community that probably, and like, for example, that one guy who was not even a liberal, who was a leftist, he said, advocate for why the Democrats are doing this and why it's successful campaign strategy, not recognizing that, like, literally, as we look through his communications a couple of years prior, he was on the exact opposing side of that argument. That is what happens when the Democrats capitulate to right-wing framing, okay? Most people are not independent thinkers, even if they fancy themselves to be independent thinkers, okay? They just basically repeat what television man tells them. The broadest majority of the population don't even give a, obviously, but the ones who do care, the ones who are supposedly the educated, high-propensity voters, right? Those people are being fed this propaganda. Those people adopt these positions by watching television man tell them these positions. 1 in 5 undocumented workers, 1.4 million people are employed in construction. That's more than 10% of the entire labor force and 32% of roofers. With the industry already facing a shortage of about 500,000 workers, Trump's deportation scheme would grind the construction of new housing to a halt, turbocharging the affordability crisis. The issue here is that people only talk about this aspect of it And I think that this is a way that, like, in the minds of a lot of Republicans proves the problem. They're like, oh, well, they're taking our jobs then. Here it is. Okay. For the criticism that people just adopt what the TV man tells them, aren't we doing the same thing with you? Yeah, but my opinions are correct. But also beyond that, I also urge you always to go and seek out the truth on your own. I provide additional evidence to you about where my beliefs come from. Okay. Even if I personally pull data from the top of my mind, when I pulled it from Top Dome, my editors slap it. Okay. They put the actual info. They literally put the information of where I'm getting this info from on the edited YouTube videos on my YouTube page. That's the difference. And I still ultimately urge you to go and seek out the truth on your own. I don't like the angle of, like, undocumented immigrants are, you know, basically great slave labor either. I don't like that at all. I think that in and of itself is a problem that also needs to be solved by documenting them and increasing their wages alongside the rest of the American working class. But anyway, let's get back to this conversation, last night's debate.
And said they view Walz unfavorably. Governor Walz aimed his jabs at the top of the Republican ticket.
If you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years and the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that.
Most Americans didn't know either of them just a few months ago, but their names are now on lawn signs all over America, and each was parodied on.
It's worth pointing out that I'm sure HasanAbi will also bring you up on, will also post you up, is that Hezbollah is not staying idle. They're also attacking Israeli before they were relieved, evacuated from the scene. But it's worth pointing out that I'm sure HasanAbi will also...
That's TRT World, not Al Jazeera. And the dude who's talking is a Turkish guy. What the... Why is there a random HasanAbi mention on TRT?
But it's worth pointing out that I'm sure HasanAbi will also bring you up on, will also post you up, is that Hezbollah is not staying idle. They're also attacking Israeli...
That is wild. Oh, what the f is this?
Saturday Night Live this weekend.
Folks, I haven't been this excited since I got a 10% rebate on a leaf blower from Menards. What can I say? I got that BDE, Big Dad Energy.
How much do we love Donald Trump? You know, just this afternoon he told me, JD, you're like a son to me because I don't like you and I'm stuck with you.
Before he became Trump's running mate, Vance was most recognized for his best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, made into a Netflix movie.
Is this seat taken? Go ahead. Phil Brosman, J.D. Vance.
A Yale-educated lawyer and Silicon Valley venture capitalist.
Vance without a beard, bro. That's like, it's so bad. It's so bad, dog. It is so goddamn bad. Holy moly, it is bad.
The 40-year-old Republican from Ohio was elected to the Senate just 2 years ago.
Making me
Once
sick.
a never-Trumper, now a fierce defender of all things Trump.
I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump.
Walz, who is 60, was a former teacher and high school football coach for over 2 decades before running for office. He served in the United States House of Representatives, a Democrat serving in a rural district that leans Republican, becoming governor of Minnesota.
I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on.
Both men are military veterans, their Midwest backgrounds contrasting with the coastal upbringings of Trump and Harris. Both brought onto the ticket to appeal to voters from Middle America. One of the few heated exchanges came on a...
Yeah, the problem is until this last night's debate, and I don't even know if his like approval ratings will boost in the Midwest. One guy was seen as like a real Midwest guy. The other guy is seen as like the exact type of annoying rat that is from there, but then comes back to just basically. One thing that I always repeat about JD Vance is JD Vance types and Pete Buttigieg types, when they come to your town, you're going to lose your job. Okay. That's how most people in the Midwest see these. Okay. They see them as like these suited up who are coming over and the mine is closing down. Okay. There's going to be an elimination of redundancies. That's it. He's got real McKinsey consultant vibes. Carpetbagger. Cook political swing state polls. AZ for Arizona, Harris is up 2. Gallego up 13. GA Trump up 2. Harris is up 3. Slotkin's up 4 in Michigan. Nevada, Harris is up 1. Rosen's up 13. North Carolina, Harris and Trump are tied, but Stein is up plus 24 for the governor's race. Pennsylvania, Harris is up only 1. Casey's up 7. Wisconsin, Harris is up 2. Baldwin plus 2. That's also a little bit scary. But, you know, it's not looking too great, I would say.
Abortion and reproductive rights. Vance, who has in the past favored a national abortion ban, softened his stance to try to align with Trump.
I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies.
Well, Walz continued to attack Trump for appointing the judge.
It's not Jill Stein yet. No, it's Josh Stein, the guy running for governor. What do you guys think, that North Carolina is having a green resurgence? Like, what are you, crazy?
Justices that overturned Roe v. Wade.
This issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing.
The latest polling averages showing very tight margins across all 7 battleground states. At one point, the two seemed to be having a real conversation about a tough issue in America.
These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful.
While both agreed there's a problem with...
Sometimes it just is and there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation.
Do you think a split ticket is actually possible with Stein up 24? It's a unique one, but governor races usually are, even if they're on the same ticket, they oftentimes have the capacity to be separate totally from the rest of the ballot, because people have a personal connection to their governors. Like, you have blue states with red governors, red states with blue governors. The most popular governor is a literal Democrat in goddamn Kentucky, right? Mark Robinson, on the other hand, however, is like very much a Trumpian style gubernatorial race. Like, he's backed by Donald Trump. He is very Trumpian. So that might create, in the minds of North Carolinians, like more resistance against voting for Trump.
I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
There was no real agreement about...
Why is the polling better for Trump now than the other 2 elections? A couple different reasons. One, perhaps most importantly, is the fact that the pollsters are trying to make sure that they don't run into the same problems that they did in like 2016, especially. So they're over polling in some instances, almost like they're weighing for an underrepresentation of Republican voters. I think that's part of the reason. They're just trying to make sure that they're not going to look silly. Other than that, I mean, Kamala Harris is not running a very good campaign. It's just, I don't know what else to say. So he's not actually that popular. I mean, he's not a very popular person. That much is true.
About how to address it.
We have to increase security in our schools. We lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience.
With the one and only vice presidential debate over, both candidates are now back out to the battleground states.
Turning now to our wisest of all wise heads on all things political, our chief political analyst, John Dickerson. He also hosts the Daily Report with John Dickerson on CBS News 24.
You got to keep the bar low, Tony.
You are a burbling fountain of all wise things. Please tell us, what were your takeaways last night?
Well, it was a kind of a, basically everything that's been reported so far. It was civil. It was, and that's notable mostly from J.D. Vance, because you look at who's running at the top of the ticket. So it's like you work for a boss who comes in and cut off jeans every day, and then a guy comes in wearing a suit and tie, and you think, wow, it's like the old days. It's like it used to be, where people believed in the norms of civility. They debated politics. That isn't to say that there wasn't a lot of traditional stuff that irritates people about politics, but it was so much different than what we've heard from Donald Trump out on the trail. So that was the biggest thing. I think probably, though, it kind of passes through and we move back into the race. That doesn't really change anything much.
To me, one of the most talked about moments of the night was January 6th and the difference of opinion between the two. J.D. Vance seemed to say, look, I want to move forward, stop looking back, accusing the media like we always bring it up all the time. Can you still say that January 6th is in the past?
Yeah, J.D. Vance said he's focused on the future. So a couple of things. One, when you spend a lot of the debate talking about how great things were in the Trump years, you can't then say, wait, but I'm focused on the future. You can't just remember the stuff you say is the good stuff. The second thing is, who's focused on this a lot and built his whole campaign around it is Donald Trump. So he's quite focused on this. But then there are two reasons I think this is really important that Senator Vance couldn't give a simple yes, Donald Trump lost the election. Simplest question in the world. Still can't do it. And we interviewed Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, couldn't do it either. This is why it matters. Two things. When you talk to national security experts who are worried about around the next election, they say the biggest thing fueling the possibility for around the next election is the lie that Donald Trump won the last one. So that fuel is out there in real time now. And then when you look at the answers from Vance and Senator Cotton, democracy exists by common agreement. Everybody agrees that elections matter and that the votes should be counted and that the power given to the people who win the election then allows you to make laws and everybody will agree to that. If that agreement doesn't exist, you have well, that agreement only exists if everybody chooses to agree to it. So when you see Senator Vance and Senator Cotton making excuses, not saying easily that Donald Trump...
Yeah, they're really hitting the whole, his bad answer on January 6th on all fronts. Like, that's what they're hammering him on, which is kind of weird because, yeah, he was civil, but he, very civilly said he would deport 25 million people, Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Lost, they are creating room for the lie to keep living. Yeah. This is not like a debate over tax cuts. This is about a fundamental idea of whether 81 million people should be disenfranchised because a guy didn't like that he lost. Yeah. Who said that? Not me, but the Republican leaders in the House and Senate at the time who said the lie from Donald Trump led to the... That's real and alive right now. It's not in the past.
Yeah, that's what worries me, that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
I'm more surprised that they didn't actually hit him on the fact check side.
Do you?
Because he was sad. He was like, yeah, you promised you wouldn't fact check me. That's weird.
You all want to hear from the folks at the top of the ticket. Would you want to hear from Harris and Trump one more time? Or are you convinced you know who you're voting for? It doesn't matter at this point moving forward. Bill?
I'd like to hear it one more time.
One more time?
I want them to hear who they're voting for, so absolutely do one more.
I really don't want to.
No, you're good.
I'm done. I'm over it.
I'd like to see one more debate.
One more debate?
I'd go for it, yeah.
One more debate?
Yeah. It wouldn't change my opinion, but I think it would help clarify some of their talking points on both sides.
I don't think it's worth it. I feel like it's too combative.
Wow.
Well, that pretty much sums it up. Some voters want another presidential debate and others are good. Let's take a closer look at the lies, though, from last night. Major.
Why would anybody say that they don't want another debate? I don't get it.
Garrett is here to help us fact check the VP debate.
Good morning, Adriana and Tony. Great to have our plus on here in the extra hour. Last night was not about grand exaggerations or really outright lies. Things were much grayer, and we'll get into that. I want to explain how our CBS Confirmed team basically worked round the clock last night to fact check the entire debate. And you can find the results of that work on social media, CBS News, or our website, CBS.
Because they recognize the same things you've been saying about the debate. Yeah, but I'm down to fucking watch another Trump-Kamala Harris matchup. I don't give a... What the fuck is going on? Donald Trump, Lib Crusher, thank you for liking my post. I'll send you important election updates from North Carolina. Make sure you're ready to vote for Donald J. Trump. What the? Is he doing follow for follow too? Lib Crusher is a random Twitter account.
News confirmed team. I want to get to the first one, something that Senator J.D. Vance said about the Iran nuclear deal. Let's listen.
Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons.
The CBS News confirmed team rates that false, and here's why. And also, it needs context. What he's referring to is the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That's the Iran nuclear deal, negotiated by President Obama in 2015.
If I like this post, I'll get it.
If it had held, would have unfrozen assets that Iran could have used. But President Trump pulled out of that deal. Those assets remain frozen. And the $100 billion figure J.D. Vance referred to, it's actually $50 billion. That's why we rate it as false, needs context.
I like the post. I didn't get it. Trump is using a Obama tread Robin. Thank you for liking my post. So Trump is using a branded notification for this. Thanks for pointing it out. It's basically like a tweet or semi-public DM, I guess, that won't appear in your timeline or searchable. Mystery solved. Wait, how do I find it? Oh my God, he did. He did do it. Boom. He's a fan. I'm a real patriot now. This is like a senior getting excited. Their doctor's office texts back after they make an appointment. All right, shut up. This is objectively funny. Okay. Who you voting for in North Carolina? Mark Robinson and Donald Trump. Duh. Order his Bible. I've already ordered his Bible. Excuse me.
So we'll move on to the next one. Hot topic over the issue of housing in America as it relates to immigration. Again, Senator Vance.
You have got housing.
Do you like Trump or Kamala, or rather not say? What? No, I hate Donald Trump. I marginally hate Kamala Harris a little bit less than Donald Trump, but I still hate both of them. That's crazy.
That is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes.
The CBS confirmed team rates that partially true, saying it needs, again, more context. Returning to my point that there were not extravagant claims, but they all need more context. And here.
Oh my God, I can't believe they're literally saying like, oh, well, you know, it just needs more context. It just needs more context. What the f do you mean it needs more context, man? Are you insane? It is an insane thing to say. It's just as insane as claiming that undocumented migrants are responsible for like all the drug trafficking. Like, are there undocumented migrants that have engaged in drug trafficking? Yes. Is it marginal? Yes. The overwhelming majority are American citizens. Okay. There is no difference between saying this and then saying migrants are increasing the American. Okay. Because while true, okay, of course, there are undocumented migrants that have done, of course, they're human beings. Human beings are capable of being good. Many of them are. And some of them are capable of being bad and doing horrifying. That's not how you look at the situation. That's not how you analyze the situation. You don't go, oh, well, you know, even if out of 15 million undocumented migrants living on U.S. soil, there was one extra. Technically, it's true. Technically, that is true. Okay? If there was literally only one extra homicide on U.S. soil that was done by an undocumented migrant, you could technically say undocumented migrants have increased in the United States of America. But if you were to make that argument, people will look at you like, what the fuck is wrong? Are you insane? That's an insane argument to make.
Here it is. Yes, there's a housing shortage in this country. Study that Senator Vance referred to, and other studies suggest larger flows of immigration is one of the complications there. But housing shortage has been a problem since the Great Recession. In the decade after the Great Recession, we produced more new homes, fewer new homes in this country than we did in any decade since the 1960s. It is a complex problem with a lot of economic inputs. Higher immigration, legal and illegal, is but one of them. Finally, there was a claim by Governor Tim Walz about contraception and access to fertility.
Yeah. Higher immigration, legal and illegal is not an issue here. Okay.
Treatments. Let's listen.
Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments.
CBS News confirmed team rates that as needing context.
Heard that.
So here's what I want to explain about that. Project 2025 does not call for a pregnancy registry. However, it does call for, in any state that performs any abortion, an entire list of data about those abortions. Age of the woman, gestational age of the baby, location of the woman, in-state or out-of-state. All this.
We're done. We're done. It's over, bro. It's over. Boys, is over. He just described a registry. He literally just described a registry while saying it needs additional context, guys. So what word could he have used in that situation? This is so nitpicky, dude. Just like the Dems are making choices, we got to address the active choices the media has taken towards fascism. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, dude. I cannot believe that, like, it needs context. On the one hand is, yes, undocumented migrants are actually a burden on the housing supply. Technically is true. And then it needs context for the Tim Walt's side is, well, you know, a registry that he correctly identified as a registry. This is false. There is no doubt that the Project 2025 plan recommends restriction on abortion access, including the abortion pill. And it wants the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to collect this information from states. Number and method of abortions, reason for abortion, how far along, pregnant people's state of residence, and more. However, it does not create a federal agency to monitor pregnancies, nor does it require pregnant people to register. You literally just described a pregnancy registry and then said it doesn't require pregnant people to register. It requires the states to put the information. It is the entire purpose of this is to make the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to operate a pregnancy registry, a database. And considering how Project 2025 works, by the way, it would be the CDC would be operated by entirely Trump appointments. How do you think that's going to work? He said pregnancy registry, not abortion registry. What are you talking about? This is a pregnancy registry. What are you saying? What are you saying? Am I reading this wrong? Like, what's happening? It's literally, that's it. That is the same thing, okay? Maybe you want to call it like a database or something. I don't know if you don't want to call it a registry, but that's it. It's it. That's the same. Oh, Chatter is right. It's saying they want the state of residency for pregnant people that got an abortion. First of all, it's not a pregnant person that got an abortion. It's a miscarriage registry. Okay? That's what it is. Just so you understand. Okay? Stop playing fast and loose with these semantics arguments. And ultimately, the goal is to track pregnancies. Okay? That's it. There is no reason for this data to be logged and aggregated by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention unless you want to prosecute these people. If you guys do not understand, this is not like a Project 2025 thing, by the way, okay? Like, this is something that, you know, family values and other, like, psychopathic, like Moms for Liberty type groups have been advocating for quite a while, okay? It's just written in Project 2025, but this is something that there has been a lot of advocacy for. Why? Because there's no other way to actually abortion. It's something that I have talked about for years, as a matter of fact, when talking about how cruel and unusual the abortion would work. You know how I do this process where I tell you, like, how do you think mass deportations would work? And then I walk you through the steps piece by piece to help you materialize what that would look like if we actually did mass deportations. I used to do that about abortion as well, way back in the day, almost for a goddamn decade. And yes, a standard part of that protocol is to monitor abortions, maybe even monitor menstrual cycles, okay? Depending on how insane you want to get, because there's no other mechanism of control. If you want to stop abortions and you want to, you have to track people who are pregnant, okay? You have to track people who are pregnant that get a miscarriage. You have to prosecute every miscarriage like it is a murder. Deport the illegals. Nice, man. If you have this kind of like semantics, if you have this level of like semantics difference in this situation. You are insane, okay? You are psychopathic. I don't think you understand what's going on here.
That Project 2025 does not call for a pregnancy registry. However, it does call for, in any state that performs any abortion, an entire list of data about those abortions. Age of the woman, gestational age of the baby, location of the woman, in-state or out-of-state, all this other data. And it would also call for many, many religious exemptions to access to contraception, meaning if you're a hospital that's Catholic or otherwise, you don't have to provide it. All of those things fit within this general context, but there is not a specific pregnancy registry called for Project 2025. That's how we rate it.
Love that context, Major Garrett. I mean, and shout out to the CBS News Confirmed team because they were fact-checking in real time. The emails were coming in fast and furious last night. And then that QR code on the screen
that was
where
cool.
Viewers could actually check to see the...
Do they just go to jail afterwards? Yeah, they have. We have prosecuted people for miscarriages before in this country. Even in Roe v. Wade era, we have prosecuted women for miscarriages because the distinction between a miscarriage that is naturally occurring and a medical miscarriage is, not all that significant. Do you understand? You can't always tell. And another aspect of this, like I've talked about before, time and time again, literally go back to like 2016 videos I've done on this. Okay. And you will see, like, how far do we go in terms of prosecuting abortions and prosecuting miscarriages? Is it now illegal for a pregnant woman to mow the front yard? That's labor. That's like a physically taxing thing that a pregnant woman is doing. Are you going to start prosecuting women who are pregnant for drinking a glass of wine? Okay? Like, there is no limit to the madness here.
Because no moderator ever born can provide the kind of context in real time and the underlying fact checks and the footnotes you need to thoroughly assess something's truth or falsity in real time. Yeah. That's why we provided that service last night, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, it is pretty wild that we can't have a registry, but we can have a registry for pregnant women. That's cool. That's really cool. It goes to show like what our priorities are, you know? Great stuff overall. There is no amount of control that people won't say yes to when it comes to just like people that you want to own, people that you want to dominate, people that you want to marginalize. It's great. On the other hand, very different dynamic. You feel me? What is happening? My food is here. Oh, because pregnancy isn't a right. Yeah. Women's bodily autonomy is not a right, brother. You don't understand.
First of all, let me ask, do we need to go to Jacob right now? Is he ready for us? Okay, well, he is. Good. Jacob Soboroff is in Oakland County, Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan.
My wife had a stillbirth, and our DA was considering bringing her up on charges because she was at a wedding, didn't drink a couple days before. It was the worst thing that ever happened to us, and they wanted to throw her in jail for it. Yeah. Like, when I say this is a real issue, I don't think people understand how insane that is, dude. Like, that's a real thing, brother. What are we talking about? That's a real thing. Abortions being 100% means that if you are a pregnant woman that is in the process of carrying a pregnancy to term and the unthinkable, the worst thing possible happens, okay, you are now, there's an investigation that must be conducted. Charges must be brought up. We have to make a full-blown assessment of all the things that you did in your daily activities as the government, by the way. We want the government to go through and treat it like a goddamn murder and look at all of the things that you did and figure out if you are responsible for this miscarriage. Tracking the number of abortions and demographics that doesn't seem harmful to individual people. What? Tracking the number of abortions and demographics of them doesn't seem harmful to individual people. What are you talking about? They want literally who is having abortions. They want that information. It's not simply overarching, faceless, anonymous data. You already have pregnancy and abortion data. You already have that data. It's just, you know, like there's research on this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this is different than that.
Michigan. We spoke with him as he was setting up with a bunch of students who are going to be watching the debate there at a watch party. And he's convinced them to stick around even though the debate ended, which itself is a Herculean effort. Jacob, take it away. How'd it go?
Rachel, look at all the people. You guys, thank you very much for sticking around. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Here's The green flags and the red flags, they did the whole thing, and it was amazing, and they don't have them any longer. So I'm going to have them start with a show of hands. And I don't know if this is going to surprise you. These are not undecided voters necessarily. These are voters who could very well tip the outcome of the election come Election Day because they live in one of the most consequential counties in all of Michigan, Oakland County. It was 100,000, as I told you before the debate, 100,000 vote swing from Trump to Biden in the 2020 election. Macomb County, one of the neighboring counties, is also a very important swing county here. Let's just start with a show of hands. Did anybody come into this debate and leave feeling differently than when they came in terms of candidate? Raise your hand if you changed your opinion of the candidates because of this debate. Oh, really? One? Come on down, dude. Come on down. Come on down. Come on down. Come on down. Very surprising. What's your name?
Henry.
Henry, what's going on? Okay, so you came in feeling what?
I felt like J.D. Vance would have done a lot worse. I think he's very awkward. His other like public appearances have been very awkward. I'm thinking back to like the scenario in the ice cream shop where he just made it so awkward for the camera.
Might have been the donut too, right?
Yeah, I just thought, well, like why can't he just be normal like the rest of us? Like,
and that's how you felt coming out of here.
I felt he did a lot better. I feel the way J.D. Vance works is he works very well when he has a lot of preparation. This is a debate. He knows about it weeks in advance. So he
prepared better here.
I think he prepared very well.
So one of the things, will you do me a favor? These are for you. Thank you very much. Thank you. One of the things, guys, that I thought got the strongest reaction here was Jimena was talking about at the beginning of the debate. And one of the strongest reactions here I thought was interesting was, Rachel, what you were just talking about when J.D. Vance said one of the ways ultimately that we can stop in this country is by having better locks on our doors. Did anybody react? You're laughing back here. No, you. What's your name?
Nora.
What'd you think when you heard J.D. Vance talk about that? Jimena was talking about how because of what happened at one of your neighboring schools here, it's an issue that rings close to home.
I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, the issue is not better locks on doors.
Reproductive freedom is also something that got a big reaction in this room, and I saw a lot of green flags go up when Governor Walz was talking about how he wants to protect a woman's right to make her own choices. I see you reacting strongly here. Really, ultimately, guys, what this is about is enthusiasm, and whether or not in this state that had the highest youth voter turnout in the 2022 midterm elections, whether or not folks like this are going to be compelled to come out. These guys are compelled to stay here till 27 on a school night. You know, you heard that answer. What did you think?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
On reproductive freedom, what did you think when you heard Governor Walz say that he thought it was a woman's right to make her own choices?
I completely agree with that. Like, I feel like that should be considered common sense almost, but it isn't. It's become such a heated debate for what feels like should be a no-brainer, and he just kind of voiced that.
The other one was immigration. I thought, God, and you guys correct me if you feel like I'm misstating everything here, but on immigration, number one, there was a loud laugh in this room when those mics got shut off, and that was, of course, around the issue of the Haitians that are in Springfield, Ohio, under the temporary protected status. J.D. Vance was saying, Senator Vance was saying that they were there illegally. Of course, that wasn't true. The moderators pointed out, and they cut the mic. But I also thought you guys in the room responded strongly to the pushback on the point that President Biden and Vice President Harris put forward one of the strongest and most conservative, actually, immigration bills in recent history, and Donald Trump that bill. Did that ring true to? You're up here. Let me just come up here with you real quick. You're nodding your head. Yes. Hi. What's your name?
James.
Why was that something, James, that resonated with you?
It is true. Congress has power for these immigration policies, and it just keeps getting pushed back between presidency to presidency, which Congress does have power in these situations. It's really just forming a demonization of immigrants, which is such an issue. We see a lot of against immigrant communities. These are not illegal people. They come here undocumented for whatever reason there is, and it's just causing more harm than anything. And we just need to push towards like true policy rather than like all these like talk points.
I appreciate it, you guys. And I guess, maybe the final thing that I just wanted to ask, we were talking, Marcus, about this constant criticism about the vice president not being able, about the vice president being in office for these last, he's already upset about it. The vice president being in office for all these years and not being able to make the change was the allegation from J.D. Vance. You said to me, I've been to high school civics class. Why did you say that?
because if anybody took high school civics class, they'd know what the vice president can do and what the vice president can do. I want to make a quick point. Neither candidate on that stage talked about what executive action they're going to take on day one to do what they want, nor were they asked, because they know that they can't. That's not how the vice presidency works. You don't get to do what you want. You do what the president delegates you to do. So that
one day, Marcus is going to be all of our teachers in civics class, guys. I wanted to thank you all very much for being here. And Rachel, just reiterate how important that these voters are, the enthusiasm that is here. You can really feel it. And it's exciting to be here with all of you guys. We appreciate it very much. And I know they do, too, back in the studio. Rachel, back to you.
Fate of the nation is in your hands, from Madam President Jimena and to all of them. Very, very thankful. Very thankful to you, Jacob, for being there with them. It's inspiring to see them.
Thanks, Rachel.
All right.
Jerika Duncan watched last night's debate in a very interesting place, Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is one of those towns that voted for Trump in 2016, then flipped over to Biden in 2020. Everyone's battling for it once again.
This is the second foreskin, second circumcision guy, right? It's so crazy because, like, I used to watch him all the time. And we all did. We watch him on stream on a daily basis. And now, my opinion of him, since the Ta-Nehisi Coates contentious interview that he conducted, and in the aftermath when we found out that he wrote an article about how he got his dick skin chopped off again, like, it has altered my worldview irreparably. Like, I will never see him the same way ever again. He shook me to my very core with his bravery. He double tapped, dude. Excuse me, what? Yes, this is Tony Double Caucus, or whatever his last name is. He is an adult convert to Judaism, and in an effort to showcase his determination, he got, as an adult, a second circumcision. We only know about it because he then wrote an article about it. It's also additionally funny because his wife still left him after all that.
Again, Jerika, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. It is a very competitive district here in Kent County, Michigan. About 350,000 people voted in the last presidential election. But following last night's debate, we asked the voters, who do they think won? They said J.D. Vance. Most of them said that he won this debate. But take politics out of this for just a moment. They said they were most impressed with the civility that we saw on full display last night. Take a listen.
This debate that I saw made me happy.
The median American voter is so irreparably stupid. Like, there's no salvaging this situation. The normie voters are so, dude, they're so stupid. I mean, I get why we are going to get fascism. I get it. Wow, I love civility.
That, again, the politics is going.
Like, they both civilly said they want Israel to glass Iran. J.D. Vance civilly said he wants to deport 25 million migrants.
Back to us treating each other with respect.
I think that my biggest takeaway from Vance is that he is able to articulate himself, his feelings, his policies in a respectful way. It's one of the things that I dislike about Trump.
They both complimented each other when they needed to and gave respect to each other. They got along as two gentlemen.
Another issue that was top of mind for those voters was
they both agreed that that something needed to be done, but there really wasn't a plan to fix anything. The only thing that I heard was Vance saying that he wanted more security in the schools. If someone were to have access to in my kid's school, I have no idea what I would do.
I got asked more questions when I was getting a dog from the shelter than when I was getting and we're just now getting to a point where it seems like maybe there's going to be actually real support on both sides to do basic safety things.
Yeah,
but
right.
I feel like the Republican Party has not prioritized or taken some of these basic common sense things seriously.
Before the debate started, two of the voters said that they were going to vote for Trump. Two said they would vote for Harris. Two said they were undecided. But by the end of it, those two undecided said they would vote for Trump. So clearly, these voters didn't see eye to eye on all the issues. But there was one thing that they said they do all agree on. Take a listen.
What a lock.
Is democracy on the line in this election? Bill?
Yes, sure is.
Eric, why are you laughing?
Because it just absolutely is. And I had to catch myself, but it's oh my God, is it? Yeah.
Holly?
Same. I feel the same way, yes.
Yes, definitely.
More than ever in my life, yes.
More than ever in your life.
Yes.
Kelly, yes.
Nice discussion that we had there. We're going to put the full interview eventually on YouTube, so check it out. With 34 days left, though, all of these voters said.
I feel like if you say you're undecided on television and don't say you're going to inevitably vote for Trump, they're like, that's not how this is going to go, big dog. We didn't bring you up here to say you're undecided for no reason. You're going to say you're undecided, but now you're committed to Donald Trump. And you're going to say you were undecided, but you care about some random thing that we've decided is the most significant part of this process.
I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done.
I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was.
I'm in agreement with him on this.
First of all, I didn't know that you're a 17-year-old witness, and I'm sorry about that, and I hope that you're doing okay.
So.
Christ have mercy.
It was a shockingly civil debate, if that's a
God, I hate this so much. Oh my God. Just vaguely gesturing at some understanding, some false notion of civility without any sort of policy. Oh man, I love the civility. Wow, we're really back as a country. Oh damn, the 5 just reacted.
Hello everyone, I'm Dana Perino.
I can't wait for them to talk about. See, this is why I like conservative news more, okay? Because they're going to talk about civility for like 3 seconds. And then they're immediately going to talk about how Tim Walz is secretly a gay Chinese communist, okay? Like, that's what I want from my news media, okay? They're going to be like, he's not a secret Somali. We were wrong about that, okay? Mea culpa. They're actually, we are now updating our position on Tim Walz's ancestry. He's not a secret Somali. He's a secret Chinese communist.
The thing, both vice presidential candidates mostly sticking to differences in policy as they squared off over the issues. In a post-debate focus group, an overwhelming majority said they thought that Vance won last night. Here's why.
He's very battle-tested, very ready, and you can just see that he went to Yale, and he's very intelligent, and he reassured a lot of people, I think.
Somebody else.
It was a strong control of the facts. He ran the show.
He remained steady during the whole performance, and I was very impressed with him being very sincere and authentic. He humanized himself and actually looked like a regular guy.
Joining us now, pollster and communications strategist Frank Luntz. Those were people that you had polled or were talking to. And I found the last comment really interesting because he humanized himself, indicating how badly he has looked in front of some people with some of the comments he's made. What did you make of how Vance did? And then we will get to Walz.
Well, I actually want to start, and I apologize to your listeners for this voice, but this is what happens when you do a focus group that doesn't end until an hour after the debate. Our participants had a lot to say. Number one, they loved both candidates. In fact, if they could, they would have reversed the tickets and put Vance and Walz on top and the other two on the bottom. Number two is it gave them faith in democracy, the idea that people could sit down, disagree, and do so civilly. But in terms of Vance, they were shocked that the Vance that they've seen up to this point was not the J.D. Vance of last night. Measured, thoughtful, emotional, willing to agree with his opponents, not divisive. The language that they used to describe him tells me that he has been misused on the campaign so far, that he would be far better communicating Donald Trump's agenda, vision, and purpose than the attack dog kind of a strategy that they've been using up to now. I have to tell you, only twice in my career have I had such an overwhelming movement towards one candidate. That's how significant yesterday was. Not that they were critical about Governor Walz, but they were so shocked at how emotive Senator Vance was.
Right, and because he was coming from this place of being very unpopular when it comes to his personality and the things that he's said, so that's an interesting twist. What about Walz? What did you hear from the panel on how Walz did and what they thought of his comments and his policies?
Now, he got better as the debate went on. They thought that his first 30 minutes that he was stumbling, that he struggled.
By the way, this to me proves that a halfway competent orator would be making short work. So you know it came out later on Twitter that Lunz's group was 8 out of 12 Republicans who voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020. Basically exactly what you say about focus groups. No one is undecided. Yeah, I mean, am I shocked that Frank Luntz had a focus group that was mostly Trump Republicans? No. But you want to know something that's still important in their analysis? Those were Trump Republicans who hated J.D. Vance. That's why they literally were like, I'm shocked at how I saw him. You could tell that they're Trump Republicans because they didn't talk about like all the weird podcasts that he's done. But they know him as like kind of an unlikable guy. Also, yes, Frank Luntz is obviously not like, I mean, he is the guy responsible for the estate tax being called death tax. Okay. He's Mr. Global warming himself. This is what he does. He is a Republican op. Anyway.
As I am speaking to you right now. And they felt that he wasn't really as engaged and he was much more defensive. His best moment of the night was in challenging Senator Vance on what happened in the events of January 6th, and most specifically, whether or not Trump won or lost the 2020 election. That said, he did not connect as well because he was much less specific, and they were particularly critical that he was not answering the questions the moderators were posing. And in a vice presidential debate, they expect more from the candidates than to try to duck the questions.
Well, the polling is out, and they're basically even, 49 to 51%. So a lot of people having a lot of opinions, but it is very interesting to note that people felt good about what they saw because it was civil for once, something we haven't really seen over the past, 8 or so years. Frank Luntz, thank you so much.
Joining us right now is former White House Director of Message Planning for President Biden, Megan Hayes, and strategic communications expert, former Republican strategist and pollster Lee Carter. Guys, thanks for coming in. Megan, you called this a pre-Trump era debate. Walz looked nervous, especially off the top. Everyone saw that. The way Jen Psaki described it, her take was, the way she put it is, missing the magic and the organic spontaneity of Tim Walz. What did you see last night?
Yeah, I think he was absolutely nervous. I mean, I would also be very nervous on that stage as well. And then he got into his groove, and I think he did very well. I think the highlights for him were obviously the issues on reproductive rights. I think he was very strong there. I think he pushed back really appropriately on immigration and some other top areas. I do think that his shining moment and where the dials were really high, according to a lot of the polls, were the last question about if he can, say that Donald Trump lost the election. And I think that the independent voters in these swing states, that's what people are noticing. Do they really want someone who can't say that their boss lost the election as the last person in the room when they're making these crucial decisions, during a wartime and during some of these other crises that you face as the president and the vice president? So I think that was a really telling moment for Walz. And I think, both of them did no harm. And I think that, we will all move on to the next major news event in the cycle.
We have all survived, and we will all move on together. And to your point that was a high point, the campaign, the Harris campaign seems to think so. We have new reporting that they're cutting an ad with that moment about the 2020 election question, an ad for that. Lee, some people saw J.D. Vance last night as kind of working to soften some of the sharp edges that are Donald Trump and Trump's message to voters. The Democratic governor of Colorado, who's a surrogate for the Harris campaign, was on with John this morning. And I want to play for you what he said to that idea.
If you're looking for a car salesman, he's your guy. I mean, I think he looked at shifty, he looked at slick. Of course, he's good at what he does. He talks to different groups in different ways, no question about it. But at the end of the day, he failed to say he would side with the American people over Donald Trump.
Lee, you held a focus group last night. What did you see last night?
So I saw that Democrats really didn't believe J.D. Vance. They said he seemed nice. Very, very much in line with what we just heard from the governor here. But I think that independent voters and Republicans were refreshed to see a softer side of J.D. Vance. Actually, many people said that they really didn't know what to expect. They listened to him and they said, I appreciate that they can disagree without demonizing. He talked about a lot of issues in ways that resonated. He got away from the abortion debate unscathed, which I think is a big deal because this is the biggest weak spot for Republicans. And so I think overall, J.D. Vance came away with more fans than he went in with. Is it going to change votes? Absolutely not. There was not one voter that I talked to last night that ended up changing their mind, but people had a more favorable impression of J.D. Vance than they expected to.
Favorability.
Great. So the only thing that happened is it worked in favor of J.D. Vance looking not like a monstrous piece that he is. but instead as a solid orator of Trump's Republican ideals. I don't know when Felix will be here. Stop asking me, dude. I don't know. I don't know. I never know. This man runs on his own time, all right? Oh my God. Every time I say Felix is going to be on the show later, people literally nonstop in the chat like, when do you think he's coming? Did I miss him? I don't know, man. Why is he a monstrous piece of, I don't know. I mean, just this last week, he kept pummeling a neo-Nazi created conspiracy theory that Haitians are eating dogs and cats. And even on that debate stage said he wants to deport 25 million people living on U.S. soil. I personally think Adolf Hitler is bad. Controversial opinion. I know, brave take, you might be saying. Okay? I am okay? I think Adolf Hitler is bad and wrong. So when I hear an American politician in 2024 repeat Hitlerian policies, I'm going to go ahead and say, I think that guy is bad and wrong. Monstrous piece of... Does that make sense for you? Hogs just want a sleazy white guy to tell them Nazi shit with a fake smile and conversational tone so they don't have to feel bad for being fascist, and Lewis will smile and clap like seals for the civil fascism. Yeah.
He did go in with historically low favorability. I remember Harry Enton has done an analysis of that. So any improvement to be made there, I'm sure he and the campaign will be happy about. Megan, do you think last night did anything to make a second debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump more likely?
No, I don't think last night is going to change that dynamic. I think that Trump is going to see how things are going in the next couple of weeks before the debate and see if he feels that he needs to go back out there and take another swing at it and to see what he can do. I don't think he will show up for another debate. I don't see why he would do that. He does not like to lose, and he clearly lost the last one, so I just don't see him putting himself in that situation again. But I don't think last night would change his mind on that.
Lee, I want to ask you, especially because you have this insight of the focus group. One statement from J.D. Vance that stuck out had something to do with abortion, reproductive rights. What he said, he was asked about the campaign's stance on abortion rights, and Vance said this.
As a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us.
Earning the American people's trust back on this issue. But Trump's take on abortion rights and reproductive...
Dude, he literally did the lib-ass, we see you, we hear you. And of course, the dumbass liberals and mainstream media are like, oh my God, what a beautiful answer. That's what I heard from NPR this morning. They ate that up. That's all they... Dude, they're so stupid. Liberals are some of the easiest to manipulate people on the planet, dude. Like, you can have a guy go on every podcast and be like, women are brood mares. They must be bred forcibly. And if they ever dare to do anything but breed and stay in the kitchen, we should jail them and kill them. Okay? Like, you could have a guy like J.D. Vance say that every day. And then he goes on the main stage and he's like, we really have to do a good job of hearing women out. They have a lot of problems and we must solve them. And everyone's like, aw, you see that? He's a good guy. He changed his mind, actually.
Reproductive rights include statements like he's proudly the person responsible for Roe versus Wade. Trump says he's done exactly what he intended to do. Why then is J.D. Vance saying he needs to earn back the people's trust?
Well, I think that the Republicans have done a very, very bad job talking about their position here. Their position on abortion is actually not the popular position among Americans. And so they're really fighting upstream. So the way...
Whoa, that's crazy. But if I were to look at mainstream media in the months leading up to Roe v. Wade's, abolition, despite the fact that all the polling showed that 75% of the public actually consider Roe v. Wade to be good. It was a real controversial position. It was a real 50-50 split. I just don't understand it because this doesn't really match like the way the media covered this issue until it was gone. And now they're covering it very differently now that it's gone. Chat, when I say this, look, I'm an avid media watcher. You guys know this, and you're in here. You're an avid media watcher as well, right? How many times did we hear from the media? How many times did I scream at my goddamn TV, at my goddamn monitor, whenever we heard in NPR reporting or in New York Times reporting, like, abortion is a real controversial issue for Americans? It was never a controversial issue for Americans. It was not. That was a whole cloth, Completely manufactured narrative. It was never a controversial issue. Everyone was like, no, we like it. Please let us keep it. Okay. It's incredibly stupid that the media has the capability of just like shaping the narrative. And even if they don't shape the narrative successfully, it doesn't matter because your voice doesn't matter. Nothing we do matters. I hate this. Now you understand why I hated last night's debate. I hate it so much that I forgot to run the 3-minute ad break right now in the top of the hour. Obviously, polling never matters, okay? It doesn't. It just simply does not matter. If it did, the Democratic Party would have changed trajectory on Israel policy a long-ass time ago. Here's a 3-minute ad break now, by the way.
It's made women feel like they're completely left behind, that they have no rights if the Republicans take office. And so I think J.D. Vance was trying to say here that we need to do better. And if we are going to take this position, we recognize that we need to support women in other ways so that's the best choice. And frankly, it was a refreshing answer to folks that said that many people said this didn't seem as scary as other answers I've heard before. They want to hear that there's more support to women. Does it answer people whose primary, concern is women's rights and abortion? Absolutely not. But again, I think this showed a different side of J.D. Vance and the Republicans than we've seen until now. And for many people, that was somewhat refreshing and made them feel less scary. Scary was a word I heard a lot.
Bro, this is CNN. Glaze!
It's really...
CNN is glazing.
Along with Judge Jeanine Pirro, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. So the Democrats' assistant coach fumbling the ball at the big VP debate, Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz striking a more civil tone as they tangled over the big issues facing the country. And it turns out shielding your candidate from media scrutiny is just not the best strategy. Tim Walz only doing a half dozen interviews before the showdown, and it left him a little bit rusty when compared to the battle-tested Vance. Watch.
A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment.
Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos. Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line.
When we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, Donald Trump's fickle leadership. Donald Trump is fickle.
If you blame Donald Trump, who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine.
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with schools. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't.
Walz has faced credibility issues from stolen valor claims to embellishing his military record. And last night, he stumbled over whether he was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protest, despite many outlets reporting that he wasn't.
Can you explain that discrepancy?
My community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain
knucklehead
the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest.
By the way, I told you they would be like ability for 2 seconds and then immediately start hitting Tim Walz, and they're precisely doing that.
Governor Walz had an entire night to sleep on those comments. His cleanup job wasn't that great.
Look, I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong and China in 1989. That move from Hong Kong into China, it was profound for me. That was the summer of democracy. I said it's where I understood how sacred democracy was.
All right, Greg Gutfeld, haven't heard from you yet, and looking forward to it.
He was unprepared, but why is that his fault? Democrats don't have to be prepared. They're usually operating under the assumption that it's going to be an easier ride for them than if you were a Republican. And he's like, what's up? What's with all this stuff? The media tried to lower expectations for Walz, and they were right to do that now that we see how he did. But they overplayed Vance's unlikability. So you were expecting something that wasn't charming, smart, or steady. So the media actually helped Vance by amplifying his unlikability. The first time you saw Vance was last night after a steady of media caricatures. What a shock it must have been. Wow, he's not weird. He's not mean. I mean, this guy came out and just shows you how the media lies to you. The media portrays those outside their bubble falsely. And then when you finally see the reality, then your eyes are open to the things they say.
He's not wrong, dude. He's not wrong. J.D. Vance is objectively a weirdo. He's gross as fuck. But like, if you didn't really pay attention and you just only heard people say he's weird, and then you watched it last night, you'd be like, no, he seems like a normal guy. It's so civil. It's so civil. He's so civil. And now CBS, CNN, NBC, ABC, they're all saying how civil the debate was. They are literally depicting him as a normal, if not a solid orator of Trump's policies. He did a good job. That's it. I hate him. I despise him. But as an analyst, I have to recognize that he did a good job of laundering his reputation. He did a good job of portraying himself as like a normal person. And Tim Walz absolutely allowed that to happen.
Vance also did something good. He knew this wasn't a political talk show where you try to score points by making statements loudly that will end up being retweeted. He wasn't going for the dopamine. He was going for the depth. And that was his mission. And his mission showed a contrast between steady and unsteady. He showed that a silencer is just as deadly as a... I think what is really cowardly, though, is the mistake Democrats made by not choosing Shapiro. You know, they might lose Pennsylvania. They definitely lost that debate because they wanted a guy who wasn't a Jew. You know, and now you've got a non-Jew who's frantic, nervous, chaotic, liar. I think this was a real slap in the face to the Harris campaign. No offense to her husband.
Judge, I want to get to you after you watch this. This is the liberal media who was forced to praise J.D. Vance. Call for number 4.
Walz did seem unsteady. And frankly, what I saw in Walz is somebody who has not faced questions on a national stage since he became the Democratic nominee. In contrast, J.D. Vance was very smooth.
I was getting texts from Democrats, panicked, quite frankly, who were saying, wow, he's really moderating himself on a lot of these issues. He's the most likable he has ever been.
He seemed at many moments to be reasonable.
Walz did not seem prepared for it.
I mean, a lot about this debate tonight was weird. There were uncomfortable, cringy moments.
There were so many niceties on that debate stage tonight. I am just kind of like, well, if you agree so much with J.D. Vance, why should they vote for you?
All right, Judge, take it away.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, it's clear that even they understood that J.D. Vance was solid, he was friendly, he was polite, he was disciplined, and he was the kind of guy that for the first time, and by
this Shapiro is the conservative talking point. It's so smarmy and disingenuous. They don't actually give a they shit on Shapiro too. They just think this is a free and cheap dig. Yeah, it is, but it's also correct. And that's the worst kind of cheap dig that you can make. Not the anti-Semitism stuff, but the fact that like I'm making the same exact argument. If you weren't going to actually unleash Walz as a progressive force, or at the very least, like sit there and defend certain progressive policies and adopt them, okay, then why the f did you pick Tim Walz? Like, you should have literally picked Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro would be a better defender of like right-wing border bills and whatever kind of dumbass like right-wing idea you have. He would be a better defender of Israel too. You know what I mean? He could have sat up there and did his Obama routine and been like, first, if Tehran wants a nuke, it can keep it. And by that I mean an Israeli nuke on Tehran. Let me be clear. We will nuke Tehran. I'm Josh Shapiro. I'm too. The voters you would have lost picking Shapiro, you've already lost by not changing your policies. It makes no sense. Yeah. The anti-Semitism stuff is the cheap thing I'm talking about. It's so gross coming from the actual Nazis. No, you're just this mad because your dad repeats it back to you. Okay. I mean, you're right, but you're extra mad because I know your dad, and I'm Jewish. I know megaphonics. I know you're Jewish, but yes, it's you're this emotionally invested in the Josh Shapiro stuff specifically because I feel like your dad keeps repeating these talking points to you, which is pretty funny. Anyway, but yeah, no, they don't give a fuck about anti-Semitism. What are we talking about? It's Fox News. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense why they like chose Tim Walz and then like they discarded him, you know? And for the record, Megaphonics is still under the HasanAbi protective barrier, okay? He got harassed quite a bit. So we're not calling him Megaphonics.
By the way, 88% of the American people said that this was a debate that was civil and that they enjoyed. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And that's because of J.D. Vance. We'll talk about that later. Or when Walz lied, He was polite. This is a guy who's going to reach across the aisle. This is a guy who will make not only a great vice president, but a great president one day. And I don't want to get into a lot of the small stuff, but I got to tell you, I was exhausted watching Walz. I mean, it was like this, that, eyes punched out, turn around, right down. It was almost like he was waiting for the feds to come in and arrest him or something. I was like exhausted. But J.D. Vance, he so impressed me. And I think he impressed everybody. This is a guy who's going to try to solve problems. He didn't fight. He didn't play dirty. I just want to say one more thing about Walz. You know, being a knucklehead doesn't excuse you from being a serial liar.
That's the worst aspect of this, like, Hong Kong, is that he's not like a serial liar at all. Okay? That's just what, like, Republicans have chosen to lie about him on. Like, for every 12 thing that they make up about Tim Walz and claim he's lying on, there's like 2 that sticks. And then everybody forgets that, like, there's 10 other things that they made up. Bro, they thought he swapped out his dog, man. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? They thought he swapped out his dog, brother. And after last night's performance, I'm thinking maybe he did. I'm kidding. Yeah, man, he lied about being at Tiananmen Square or something. I don't understand. I don't care about lying about being at Tiananmen Square as much as I care about, like, a person who's currently lying about Haitians eating cats and dogs in an effort to kill them. Okay? Call me controversial.
And I was saying, Harold, that Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver was a knucklehead, right? It was, but, you know, lying about things that are pretty basic, and then not having the ability to land an answer at your most important moment showed, I think, why the Democrats were nervous last night. How do you feel today?
So good to be back with everybody. I think the analysis that's been around the table.
No, boo! Bring us Jessica Tarkov. Boo! Boo! We want Tarkov. We want Tarkov. Boo! Where's Jessica? Where's my Jessica? Where's my sweetie pie? My queen?
Well, I think it was a very civil debate, and I think Tim Walz contributed to the civility also. But I think that the round robin we did with some of the other reporters and journalists, who I thought were honest about it. The three of us were on last night. And I said, there are 5 things I think you have to do when you are in a debate like this, president or vice president. You got to be likable and optimistic. You got to show strength and capability. You got to be smart. You got to be relatable. And ultimately, you got to show that you're presidential. J.D. Vance, you're right, Judge. He was coming from a little bit of a deficit because of some of the media characterizations, as you said, Greg. And he, you know, you walked away. I didn't agree with him on a lot of things, but I didn't think he was a bad guy. I just think as a guy that I don't agree with on things. But in terms of a person, a father, someone who's decent, and they agreed on child care. They agreed even in some other areas involving foreign policy, but they disagreed on some other things. I thought on the substance, JD was good on immigration and the border. He was good on the economy. He asked serious questions.
Bro was like, I love school. Adderall Andy. Bro was like, I love school. You think he actually said he loves school and it wasn't just him misspeaking? That's incredible, dude. I mean, I joked about it too. He's a serial liar, although a lot of that, a big part of him is a lie. Even him lying about his kid is that never even happened. First of all, he said he befriended school, which was a massive flub. Okay. No, he didn't accidentally say, I've known school. Okay. Stop. He accidentally said, I befriended school. Okay. He meant like school victims. Okay. Or school families. Everybody understands that. Hannity talked about this on a serious show this afternoon and said Walz meant what he said. That's awesome. JD Vance misspoke the other day here. We knew what he meant.
That I could take you on our campaign plane and give you the perspective that I've gotten to this country in the past 7 weeks. This is the coolest, other than being a wife to this beautiful lady here and a father.
Yeah, do you think JD Vance is JD trans? Adderall Andy, you know, are we watching JD trans? Is that what's going on? What's up, guys? I'm Gay D Trans. That sounds like a Nick Mullen bit. Like a One Piece character, dude. Gay D Trans. Yeah, also, this wasn't a lie, dog. What the... Walt says his 17-year-old son witnessed as he played volleyball at the rec center. They fact-checked it. Anyway, my son was a witness at a local Y. I carried weapons of war in war. I was in China when they did the massacre. Like, bro's running for VP and he's caused so many lies. Out of all of those things, you mentioned 2 things where he very clearly misspoke, okay? Because if he was regularly talking about how he went to war and he's a combat veteran or something, you would have more than one instance where he has said that like 10 years ago, dumbass. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned something that it did happen and said it didn't happen. So you still haven't been able to find like an abject lie, except for this. I was in China when they did the massacre, which, by the way, demonstrates that you don't even care about what the lie is or why it's so damaging or whatever. And now you're saying you're no better, but you're biased and obviously insane. First of all, I am biased. I am. And I tell you how biased I am all the time. I am going to be writing in Joseph Robinette Brandon, okay? Because I'm riding with Biden. Why am I riding with Biden? Because these two scumbags, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, stole the presidency from the only man who did NATO, okay? Me and Ryan Ruth locked in a lover's quarrel. We are all the way to the end, the strongest allies of NATO. Biden did NATO. I'm writing his name in. That's number one. Number two, notice how you just slammed a whole bunch of nonsense here and then tried to package it with like one thing that is actually a lie. That's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to say. Tim Walz, like him, hate him. This kind of like idea that he's a serial liar is stupid. I hate JD Vance, and I very openly, for the past hour, have talked about I hate JD Vance, and yet I've talked about how well he performed on the stage last night. That should have given you an understanding that, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? I'm gonna tell you what's what. I'm gonna tell you how it is. That's it. Anyway, I think this guy probably off an hour ago after saying that. Do you plan to cover Jack Smith's newly unseated J6 evidence brief? Maybe. Dude doesn't know you defended Trump in the bloodbath comments, so not that biased. Yeah, my bias is towards the truth. Like, I don't give it. I don't find myself. I don't like the Democratic Party. I hate the Republican Party. That's it. Like, I don't give a. I'm just gonna be honest with you. If either party represents my interests, I'll tell you.
It's about why isn't the vice president doing this now? And I thought that after they took the first commercial break, Walz was good coming back. As he got his stride on abortion. He talked about health care, and if we undo the Affordable Care, what happens? I thought JD didn't have, that was the only time his substantive answers, they weren't as smooth as some of the others. And finally, I think the question he asked about, will you accept the out?
That's a good one. This is what Tim Walz meant with befriending schools. There is no greater school than this guy, bro. Check DMs. What? No, dude, I'm not checking DMs. Shut up. Like, what is wrong with some of you, man?
Outcome of the election. Do you believe that President Trump does? And he didn't answer that. But you gotta, as you look at this thing overall.
Hop on Deadlock. Soda wants to play. Dog, are you crazy? You think I'm just gonna stop in the middle of the day when I have Felix Biederman coming over in the middle of my commentary to go play Deadlock, a game that I don't even have? Like, what's wrong with you? You all right?
Then you got to say that he got the better of it, that being Senator Vance.
Did you wear a tie like this for a special occasion? A post-debate tie?
Is this a special occasion tie?
I mean, it feels like happy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Unlike you, is what we're saying.
Yeah, see, that's a happy one.
You know, this tie reflects the mood of the country. We are pleasantly surprised. How many times can you say that after watching these debates? Because there was the J.D. Vance hoax that was destroyed last night. We were told that this guy was a sketchball. And then many Americans, especially women, saw J.D.
I love hearing from another sketchball who is like an even grosser sketchball than JD Vance describe to everybody that he's actually a likable fellow. It's like, dude, you literally have the cranial physiognomy, is that the right term, of a date rapist, okay? I'm sorry, there is no other way to put it. I can't be nice. Oh, lol. XQC and Soda are watching the stream. That's why they're coming in here. What? Oh, okay, great. I don't know how else to describe it. He just gives like sleazeball vibes. I've never encountered another human being. I've never encountered cranial morphology. Thank you. I have never encountered a human being out in the wild that I'm like, that guy just looks straight up like a date rapist, dude. Straight up. And by the way, before people say, Hasan, that's really dope, I can't believe you're saying that. He literally openly admitted that he let out the goddamn air out of his now wife's tires at work so that she enough to need his help. That is serial, dog.
JD Vance last night, and they thought, this seems like the kind of guy you can bring home to your parents. He's smooth, he's polished, he's reasonable.
I got blocked on Twitter before I deleted it because I kept tweeting at Jesse thinking if he's ever noticed women instinctively covering up their drinks when he walks by. That's so good. That's such a good lock, dude. Oh, sorry. He was married. And the woman that he did that to was his subordinate at the time. God, he's so gross.
When I was trying to get Emma to date me, first thing I did, let the air out of her tires. She couldn't go anywhere. She needed a lift. I said, hey, you need a lift? She copped right in the car.
Does she know this story?
No, she doesn't know the story.
Does she watch the show?
The Jesse Jr. does.
You're basically the Zodiac.
Like, even Buttfeld's like, dog, that's some cereal. And I should know because I'm a cereal. It's so funny that both Buttfeld and Jesse Waters are like different types of sexual perverts. Like they represent the broad, diverse sexual perverse behavior spectrum. You know, one of them is like giving date rape vibes. The other one is like, I'm taking upskirt photos of you, whether you like it or not. And because if there were more people like me out there, we would also have to do the Japanese style legislation where people's phone cameras, even on silent, have to do the photo taking sound. It's great. I mean, look at this guy. Look at his face.
It has a happy ending.
Really?
Yes, we're married.
Boy.
Look at Waters Chinatown segment. We don't have to do that right now. That's real right there. I don't want it. I unironically love the gut. That's the king of late night. That's the king of late night. Have you seen this TikTok PR yet?
The first time I saw him, I did. I was like very struck by him. I thought he was very otherworldly.
Thank you for showing me the TikTok PR.